some of the speakers so we can get rolling with them here in a minute. I knew we have a bunch of folks signed up for public comment. So Gary, would you like to, so first of all, my name's Alan Cogill. I'm the new co-chair of the advisory board, so excited to be working with everyone. Gary is our new secretary, and I'm even more excited that Gary is going to be the person taking notes tonight and doing roll call. So Gary, would you like to walk us through the roll call?
Sure. Lucia. I don't see Lucia. Alicia Brown.
Hi, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Present. Sorry, I was just getting on.
And Gary,
Okay,
I
very
did
good,
see
thanks.
Lucia there. She had her camera on a minute ago.
I'm
But I think
here.
she spelled Lucia instead of Lucia right now.
Yeah, I don't know
Oh,
why my name keeps coming up misspelled, but yeah, I'm here.
maybe a personal type. Oh, sorry. Jake. Is Jake? I don't see Jake yet. Amy. Have we seen Amy? I'm picking on the ones that I didn't already put down as a yes. Christopher Johnson. Okay.
I will note, actually, sorry on that. I see a Christopher Johnson in the attendees, not the panelists. I'm wondering if that's our Christopher Johnson and he needs to be promoted.
Okay. I don't see that.
And earlier too, so I think it might be him.
Let me see. Let me try to promote. Okay, I'm gonna promote him now. Christopher, please let me know if you're in. I think he's here now.
Okay, Jonathan, saw you. Tinsley. I don't see Tinsley. So that puts us at, again, last call for Amy. And Jake. Has Jake come on yet? Saw
He just
him
topped
working
in.
on a letter. Oh, huh?
Welcome, Jake.
Yeah, Jake. Oh, there's Christopher.
Thank you.
And I still don't see Jake. Oh, there you are, Jake. Sorry. Okay, that puts us all here but three so far. Amy's missing. Jamie Lewis is missing. He announced that earlier today to me. And then Tinsley. Is Tinsley come on board yet? Okay, so it stands right now. Huh? Say again?
Negative on Tinsley. I don't see her yet.
Okay. Then there's three of us missing out of what, 19?
Great. So that meets quorum. Thanks so much, Gary.
16.
Perfect. Great. Well, we'll get right into approving the meeting minutes from January. Do we have a motion to approve and a second to approve the meeting minutes from last month? I see Paul raising his hand for that. I'll take that as a yes, and Julie as a second. We'll quick raise of hands, either virtually or on the screen. All those in favor of approving last month's meeting minutes? Great. I'm looking at all the advisory board members that I can see here, and I'm seeing lots of yeses right now. All those opposed, if you could lower your hand if you approved it. All those opposed to last month's meeting minutes? Great. It's a unanimous consent. So we'll dive right in here. We have a record. This is the most popular place to be on a Tuesday afternoon, and we're very excited. We've got 10 public speakers. I've emailed the folks asking, normally we'll do 3 minutes. Since today we just have so many, we're going to extend our public comment by about 5 minutes here, and hopefully you can get through this quickly. But we're going to ask everyone take 2 minutes for public comment. And Nanita, who did we, and I see, looks like Amy has joined us here as well, Gary. And Nanita, who do we have first on our list? I believe it was Heidi. Well, I'm going to have Heidi go first because I see Heidi's here. So yeah, Heidi, take it away. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I am here to speak about DOTI's removal of key traffic calming and landscaping infrastructure to the West Colfax Pedestrian and Transit Improvement Project. It is quite horrifying that the bond and CDOT Safer Main Street funding will now be used to concrete over an historic business strip in a divested neighborhood. It's mind-boggling that we go from a plan that includes streetscape enhancements for a more vibrant corridor for healthy, active transportation to a barren concrete landscape that harkens more to failed urban renewal projects than to the vision of any city or neighborhood plan. Least of all, the newly minted West Area Plan that centers quality of life in West Denver CAG neighborhoods. But more alarming is the way that DOTI excluded community from any conversations around alterations to the project. Budget cuts do not explain how DOTI failed to engage West Colfax residents to make a unilateral decision that will have negative impacts for decades. I would like to request that DOTI implement the project with all design components intact or redesign with community a plan that includes the majority of the landscaped and irrigated raised medians, and where that is not possible, to install safety improvements that do not permanently prevent future execution of the plan. I would also like to request that DOTI assemble a team to develop new processes for community engagement that integrate systems thinking and human-centered designs, and to request the implementation of the mayor's transition team recommendations to radically shift the community engagement paradigm to ensure that projects achieve the intended outcomes of increased safety and use of non-car modes. Implementing the design as DOTI is now proposing only exacerbates car culture and elevates moving people in cars as quickly as possible through our West Colfax neighborhood, which delivers neither safety or quality of life to the people that live here. And DOTI designers and engineers would be well aware of this if they were in communication and relationship with the people that they are meant to serve. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping
Thank
that
you,
right
Heidi.
at 2 minutes, Heidi. Yeah. Who do you have next, Anita? Anita, I think you might be on mute.
Oh, I was
Yeah,
on.
sorry. Yeah.
Could you could you transmit your transcript, please? Heidi?
Jeffrey? Jeffrey, are you in? Done? You can go ahead.
Was that for me, Dan Shaw?
Yes.
Okay, hi, everybody. Yeah, I run the West Colfax Business Improvement District. And can I share my screen really quickly? I want to show you some history on this that I put into a chart. It looks like that's disabled, so I don't want to belabor that. But there's a 9-year history behind the project that Heidi's talking about, which I'm here to talk about as well. Starting with a pop-up event that we did with what was then Walk Denver, DSP, Denver Streets Partnership now. And throughout the course of that demonstration, greenery was a central feature in medians, on bulb outs, on bike lanes. And it was like it was a surprising result for us in our survey gathering how important it was. That has been throughout the course of the evolution of this project, including doing engineered plans that helped and advocating for the passage of $20 million for Colfax-wide improvements along with East Colfax districts. We have been promoting this kind of intervention to West Colfax to make it safer and to deliver on the greenery as a central component. After that, and more recently, the West Area Plan included West Colfax as a green amenity street. And then finally, actually, and sort of contemporaneous with that was actually the project planning. Preceding that actually was the project planning with DOTI, in which that was a central feature, was the agreement to put greenery in the medians. There are safety reasons for this. There are equity reasons alluded to by Heidi, and there are also heat island and other benefits from this kind of infrastructure. And it's a huge missed opportunity. There is a plan that we put forward that balances, that is budget neutral, actually, and that is a phased approach. When I put that out there on a survey last week, within 2 days, we had more than 250 responses. 96% of the people felt that greenery was central or a key component, and 84% found that compromise idea that has been floated to DOTI leadership, et cetera.
And sorry to cut you off, Dan, but to keep us on track, again, really appreciate your comments, but I put Gary's email address in the chat here. If you'd like to email full comments to him, we're happy to take those as well.
Yeah, that was.
Thank you. Nita, who do we have next?
We have Jackie. Are you in?
Jackie, are you with us?
I just promote her. Let me see. Is she still in? Okay, let me promote her. It looks like
She has her raised hand. She's
Yeah.
in the raised hand. Yeah.
I think she should be in now.
Great.
Okay.
Jackie,
Can you
please
hear
take
me?
it away. Go ahead.
Yep. So I own Original Glam. It's on West Colfax, along with my business partners who own Duality next door inside Pony, which is a little coffee cocktail bar. We have just been severely impacted just being on West Colfax. We've had several break-ins into our business. It just and we get no help from the city. We call the police. It takes hours to get to us. It just taking out the greenery. I feel like we feel a little blindsided because our goal in owning, our small businesses is to revitalize this area because it just is, West Colfax and East Colfax have given a name to itself for a good reason, right? And it's just hard as a small business to make it and try and get clientele over to this business. We bring, I know Duality alone brings in over 6,000 people a month, and I own a little med spa. We bring in a ton of business on our side as the side pony. So we just feel blindsided by this project. It feels severely underfunded, and it just is hard knowing that our business, we're not going to have parking. We just feel like the rug was pulled out from underneath us, from getting, told one thing was going to happen and now it's not going to. And we just try so dang hard for this area to revitalize it. And we're just hit with roadblock after roadblock. So we're just frustrated.
Jackie, thank you so much for sharing your comments as a small business owner along West Colfax. We appreciate you being here tonight. Ninita, who do we have next?
We have Chantel.
Hi, my name is Chantel Molinix. I am the president of West Colfax Association of Neighbors. I'm here to talk about the West Colfax project as well. I'm also have been a resident for 10 years, kids at all the local schools, plus run a nonprofit and affordable housing in the neighborhood with over 100 residents. So kind of speaking to all of those aspects. And I think the main thing I just want to stress is safety around this major high injury network that we're talking about, hundreds of kids crossing on a daily basis. 2 of those are elementary schools that actually sit along Colfax. And so even just got off the phone with our principal at Colfax Elementary, and she was just floored by any sort of changes that would take away from slowing speeds down along Colfax, which highly affect our kids who are even crossing without adults, even at elementary age. And so we, to keep that green infrastructure in place, helps slow the traffic. And that is just like a high need for all of those areas. And I think it's also just speaks to that, we are underinvested neighborhood when you look at West Colfax and why that is needed. And yeah, just that low tree canopy is something that like we want to be investing in these neighborhoods that have been underinvested. And these kids, these are still all Title I schools, Colfax Elementary, Cheltenham Elementary, and Lake Middle School. And they need to receive that dignity of money getting poured into them for safety and for that natural landscape that just breathes to that, like, we value this neighborhood and we're not just putting up concrete barriers in the middle of the street to feed into more cars. So that is our hope. I would just also like to add that we do have a crossing guard at Colfax Elementary, and her kind of verbiage is that she fears for her life every time she is out there in her vest during school hours when it is in a school zone of people speeding and running red lights. And that's as an adult with a stop sign. So just any measures that promote safety and slowing of speeds is what we need to see in this project.
Chantel, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts tonight on the corridor and those schools. My wife is a teacher, as an occupational therapist at Cheltenham, so I definitely understand that for sure. Thank you. As a reminder, everybody, if you'd like to submit your transcript, you can email it to Gary Johnson, our board secretary, garyjohnson_eagle@msm.com. So please feel welcome to do that. Anita, who do we have next?
We have Jeffrey Moore. Jeffrey?
I think he's unpromoted.
Let me promote him now. He should be in right now. Jeffrey, let me know if you're in.
Yeah, can you see me?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. My name is Jeffrey Moore. I'm a resident of West Colfax. I'm also a local firefighter paramedic. I'm actually on duty at the station right now. So if we do get a call, I'm going to have to break and respond in the fire engine. But I want to talk about two perspectives. The first one is as a resident. I'm really concerned about the recent changes that were made to this West Colfax plan without community involvement, and also that the community was only notified 1 week prior to construction starting. The second perspective I have is as a firefighter paramedic, and I'm specifically concerned about the safety implications of some of the changes and what that's going to bring about. As the plan stands right now, we're not going to have greenery or landscape, and we're not going to have those raised medians. And I'm specifically concerned about the safety implications of not having those raised medians on West Colfax Avenue. I'm concerned that there's going to be a higher incidence of motor vehicle accidents, head-on collisions, auto versus pedestrian accidents, and pedestrian fatalities. This seems counterintuitive to the city's goals of reducing pedestrian fatalities. And I've run enough of these calls in my career, and I don't want to see it anymore, and I definitely don't want anyone to experience it in the neighborhood that I live in. And as people have already mentioned before, we've got a large population of users that are using the corridor daily, including children going to the elementary school, to the middle school. There's a public library, movie theater, restaurants, businesses, all sorts of things. And so I just want you all to know that this is important to us. We've got one shot to make it right. And I hope that you all can help us work to find a solution that includes the community and keeps safety as the top priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. Really appreciate it. And thank you for your service keeping us all safe here in Denver as well.
Yeah.
Anita, who do we have next?
Dustin? I hope I didn't pronounce your name wrong. Let me see if...
Dustin Beatty, I believe it is. I think
Yeah,
he's still an attendee.
I just promote him.
Great. Thank you so much. Dustin, go ahead. You have the floor.
Is he there?
No, I'm here.
Here we go.
Sorry about that. A lot of buttons to push to get on here. Hi, Justin Beatty. I am a West Colfax resident. I'm going to share the same concerns that the last speakers have, but I really think it's important to reiterate what we're feeling both as residents, as business owners. We've, invested a lot to move to this neighborhood. And the two biggest concerns I have, one is the safety. I live right on the corner of Knox and Colfax, probably one of the busiest intersections. And between 7 and 8:30 in the morning and 2:30 and 3:30 in the afternoon, almost every pedestrian is a child walking back from the elementary or middle school. They are not accompanied by adults. I live on the south side of Colfax. A lot of the housing over here is low income. And I don't know how aware you are of it, but there are multiple townhome units that are low income that are being approved for rezoning to multi-use 5-story. So not just for our current residents, but the future ones. Right across the street at the corner of Knox and Colfax is going to be a current 12-unit building becoming a 66-unit building. So the increase in density, those are all going to be families. That's my concern and why I think it's important for this to be reconsidered and be done at what we originally agreed on. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dustin. Really appreciate your thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
Nina, who do we have next?
That's all of them.
Great. We got through that fairly quickly, so I just want to thank all of our.
I didn't get to go.
Natiel, go ahead. And I'm sorry if I'm saying your name
Sorry.
incorrectly. Go ahead.
That's okay. That's all right here. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Natiel Fontaine. I'm one of the owners of Duality and an investor and operator in Original Glam, right between on Colfax and Brain. Duality will be 5 in May, and Glam just turned 1. Between these businesses, we see about 700 people a day from the hours of 4 a.m. until 8 p.m. We're not a franchise, we're a local grassroots concept, and we've invested a lot of time and money into creating a very special community that has served West Colfax now for many years. We have bared the brunt of a transitioning neighborhood and receive little to no support from the city for things that we think we sorely deserve. And this proposal of a project is an embarrassment and a slap to the face of all the business owners who have dedicated their careers to West Colfax and the people that have called West Colfax home. I firmly stand opposed to this project and do not want it to go forward for several reasons. Number one being that there has been little to no communication given to business owners about the timeline and the impact of this project. Just last week, we had a GC show up at our business and asked us to sign a piece of paper for the construction plans that we had never seen before. And looking at the plans, we were shocked to see that we would lose street access and side access to both of our businesses. And as a business owner, that makes me extremely nervous for the health of my business and is unacceptable to put us in this situation and just ask us to survive. There's been no proposal for a business interruption grant, and this calls back to the little to no support that we receive from the city or from anybody else while we build our livelihoods on West Colfax. We're people. We are not just a number on a spreadsheet that can be cut because of whatever budget you have or do not have. This project should have never been able to proceed without business owners' full knowledge, cooperation, and funding to ease the impact that we will have to bear if this project is pushed through. The only reason that we entertained the idea of this project was for the greenery and the landscaping, and this would have been a great first start in serving a very underserved community to make it more walkable, to make it more safe, and a beautification effort of West Colfax. Instead, it was cut to the sterile looking median that cannot even be retrofitted for greenery at a later time. We battle continuously with vandalism, burglary, drug use, vagrancy, and again, just not a lot of support for this underserved neighborhood to make it safe and walkable. I hope that you guys do better, and I believe that you can.
Thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing your story and frustrations. We really appreciate it. Again, thank you. I think Jonathan had mentioned that it looks like we have a couple of more. Sean and Angela were on the sign up list. Do you mind promoting Sean and Angela?
Yeah.
Ninita, please.
You're
Great.
both in.
Great. Let's go Sean first, because I think he's in the room. Sean, would you like to share your comments tonight? When you're able to, Sean, go ahead and unmute and join us.
Yeah, okay. This is Sean. I think the west side has been messed with in the past. There's been the redlining. There's forcing in 6th Avenue. And we want to reverse these things as a city. And we think that resources are being taken away perhaps from the west side of town. And that's not appropriate. The actions of DOTI seem paternalistic. There was an attitude of, not communicating with us, wolves pulled over our eyes. We weren't given options as the residents. In the past, DOTI has been really good about doing a lot of details. Every single intersection, they look at details. And on this project, they did also. And then the final version, they just pulled the wool over our eyes and did a dramatic change without communicating and without offering the neighborhood different options and without getting information. And we only found out about these changes not by being told that they were being changed, but by being presented this information that was different than what was agreed to before. I'm not pissed about what DOTI did right. And I believe DOTI was, they did a lot of things right. They designed it right. They found out they didn't have enough money. They found out they wouldn't be able to do the full design, which is fair. But then they dropped the ball when it came to not communicating with us, not looking for options. Trust has been hurt. We don't trust DOTI as much as we did because we feel like they didn't really listen to us. By the way, the concern with the concrete is it's permanent. You put the concrete down, and then it might be difficult to do projects in the future. So we're thinking it should be done right the first time. And as Dan mentioned, Dan himself perhaps, and maybe I think Gio Locantore from Denver Streets Partnership had ideas about how to figure out solutions that would involve the money that's available now and potentially money in the future. And what we want is an open communication with DOTI to get this project going on the right foot and kind of move things forward with us as partners.
Well, thank you so much for your comment, Sean. Really appreciate that. And we definitely hear your frustrations. And thank you for sharing. Angela, go ahead. You'll be our last speaker this evening.
Thank you. I am Angela Neri. I'm the one of the owners of Side Pony. It's a coffee and cocktail lounge that is on the corner of Vrain and West Colfax. We are less than a year old. We have already done everything that we can to build our business, and this absolutely feels like it is going to hurt us enormously for a project that, one, we didn't even know about before we signed our lease. We understand why it's happening. We want it to happen, but we want it done right. I also own a business downtown. It is Pony Up Downtown on 18th and Blake. I drive there every day as well. I've seen the construction on the 16th Street Mall for the past 4 years, so I understand where budget cuts happened and why they happened, but absolutely this should not affect West Colfax, completely different location. And I do know that the 16th Street Mall is helping the businesses that are impacted by that construction. The fact that we have not been at all talked to about, or there's been zero discussion about business interruption assistance. And the fact that we're just getting the construction plans now from the general contractor and not from DOTI at all is concerning. Construction should not be happening in the next 2 weeks. We will not have access to our front door. We will be meeting with the general contractor when this gets approved, but it should not be approved. It should not be moving forward unless there is business assistance for any interruption. That we are a brand new business. As you guys know, I'm sure you know, restaurants run on a very, very small margin of profit. We are making zero money right now. This will absolutely kill us. And we just don't feel like we were at all looped in, asked for any comment, and we don't approve.
Thank you so much, Angela. It looks like, I'm sorry, we do have one more speaker. Tim Sapp is here, and thank you so much for sharing the challenges that you're facing as a new business owner here in the neighborhood. Tim, sorry, go ahead.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'll be brief here. My name is Tim, and I am one of the owners of Duality and Side Pony, and also with Original Glam 2 on that Brain area. I'll be quick and just say that we need help. We need help on West Colfax. We do. We have a lot going on, and we know everyone is contributing in ways that they can. And I'll just say to the point is that the people that we do trust are the people like Dan Shaw's, the people that are around, that are talking to us, that are listening, that are involved and see what's going on. So I know Dan came with a proposal a while back, and he has a new proposal now. And I ask that you guys defer to Dan to filter out through us so we can make sure that this gets done in the way that's best for all the residents and all of the businesses and the community. Everyone else has said everything that I agree with, but I'll just leave it right there. So thank you guys for letting us take your time.
Tim, thank you for your comments. And thank you everyone tonight from the West Colfax neighborhood that's joined us. I know several of the folks here on the board also live in the area as well. And it's an important project to folks. It's a personally very important project to me. Tim Campbell, a guy that I went to church with, was killed on West Colfax while crossing the street in his wheelchair, hit by a driver running a red light. So I hear you all that the safety improvements are very important. The landscaping improvements that are very important that we need to invest. If we're going to prioritize equity in Denver, we should prioritize equity, not just in places, we should not just invest in places like 6th Street Mall, but also in places like West Colfax, where there are lots of great, amazing, thriving businesses and residents and great school communities like Colfax and Cheltenham. So I don't think we as a board, as a volunteer advisory board, have answers for this group tonight, but we hear you loud and clear. This is probably the largest number of public commenters we've ever seen here. So again, we appreciate all of you coming and joining us tonight, and we hear you and we see you, and we'll definitely do the best to our extent to help facilitate this process. So thank you all for joining us. With that, we're going to switch topics here. Nick, do you mind providing us with a update on from DOTI leadership this evening?
Yes, sir. And I will.
And then we'll hop into awards after that.
Of course, I will go pretty quickly here on it. Sidewalk, try to give an update on each of these meetings. We've got a meeting tomorrow. I'd say we're probably getting close to the end. Sorry, that was a vague description. The Sidewalk Ordinance Stakeholder Committee. I would anticipate, a number of you are on that, but I would anticipate kind of starting to hear more about it in the public in the next month on there, just on some of the recommendations coming out of the committee on there. Budget, I think you've probably seen the news. This is a very savvy group on there. Earl is going to, during his presentation, talk a little bit more about kind of what the budget cuts that you're hearing about, how those will potentially impact DOTI on there. Want to shout out a very successful winter bike to work day. I was actually out of town last week. But I've seen the photos and heard the reports on that, and appreciate all the brave folks. That it sounds like it was a little bit cooler than it is today on that, but sounds like that event went very well, and appreciate all of you that participated in that, and count me in for the warmer weather one next year. And then finally, and I know Jamie is not here, but wanted to definitely give a shout out to one of our members who is pending council approval. Going to be newest member of the RTD board, Jamie Lewis, replacing, being nominated by the mayor to replace Kate Williams in RTD District A. So very excited to hear that. I was able to be a part of some of the interviews, and certainly couldn't imagine anybody better than Jamie for that. So next time you see him, give him a congratulations. That's it for me. Happy to answer any questions, Alan.
Yeah, any questions from the board for Nick? Nope. Okay. Actually, Jake, go ahead.
Nick, I know we just heard a lot of public comment. In the coming weeks or so, would you be able to give us some additional context on the West Colfax project? Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, for sure.
Any other thoughts, questions for Nick? No? Okay, great. Jake, we're going to transition here. I'll quickly introduce this and then Jake can dive into it, but this has been something that Jake's really been spearheading here. It's kind of fun to give some recognition and awards to DOTI. You know, we certainly see lots of challenges and things that I think we can do better as a city, but I think it's also fun to highlight some of the great stuff that DOTI accomplished last year in 2023. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jake.
Awesome. Thanks for the time, Alan. I'm really excited about this. Our DOTI staff is incredible public servants. So often than not, when they hear from external voices, it is things that people are not viewing as going well, or they're getting, feedback that is conflicting with their work. And I think, as a board, it's, we definitely have a role for oversight and accountability, but I think we also have a place to acknowledge the incredible work that this team does. And the teams and projects and individuals that put blood, sweat, and tears at below market rates to put incredible projects out into our city. So I want to thank you all for helping out that served on the awards committee. I wish that this was in an award show format so we could draw it out, make it really dramatic and celebrate the team in the way that they deserve. But alas, this is a DOTI board meeting, so it might not have the glitz and glam that it needs to, but these individuals and teams definitely deserve it. So the first award that we had was the best process. This goes to the project that, moved really, really quickly in a well-defined way with community engagement and involvement. And that is the Blake and Market bike lanes. They moved really, really quickly to implement safety measures in our downtown in a way that we just hadn't been able to see that kind of progress on a safety topic that quickly. And the team deserves a huge shout out for this. The implementation was quick. The design elements that were chosen some of them are new to our city. Just so pleased to see that the department's experimenting with new materials. And hoping to see the results once we get some safety data in on that project, that corridor will be in a really good shape. So shout out to the team that worked on the Blake and Market bike lanes. For our best community engagement awards, this goes to the project that did the best job reaching out into the community, that really engaged all the stakeholders that are humanly possible to engage in the community. And that is the Denver Moves Everyone 2050. That project did an incredible job engaging both in public meetings, virtual sessions, and surveys and feedback, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everywhere I looked, I saw Denver Moves Everyone, and a huge shout out to that team on the community engagement that went into that. The most impactful process at DOTI, this is going to the group project process, et cetera. The big bucket for things that DOTI did that had a huge impact on the community. And that is the community transportation networks, the Northwest, the Central, and the South Central. We've never had a process like this, and it really made a big impact in the neighborhoods. There was a defined look at the neighborhoods at a community level, understanding the needs for the community, what needed to change and improve safety and access and routes. And that project did all that work and then delivered really, really fast, which is wonderful. I happen to live in one of the areas of the community transportation network. All of a sudden I came out one day, my neighborhood looked totally different, safer and more pleasant. That was awesome. And so huge shout out to the team that worked on that. And then the best operational win. For those of you that don't know, we lowered our speed limits in Denver from 25 to 20 on streets that aren't labeled otherwise. And getting that rollout of that speed reduction program, which I think was initially estimated at somewhere around like 2 years, that process has moved so fast. I think many of us have seen the speed limit 20 miles per hour unless otherwise posted, or the Denver law speed limit 20 miles per hour unless posted. That rollout was just incredible. The difference between someone surviving a crash at 25 miles per hour and 20 is dramatic. And so the quick rollout of this program is going to save lives. And so huge shout out on an operational basis for the team on prioritizing that and getting that out. So those are our 4 winners. I know that I did it without many pauses, but they all deserve way more time and way more celebration. But shout out to our winners.
Great. Thanks, Jake. Just want to echo Jake and say thank you to all the folks at DOTI on those projects and those initiatives. It's been really great to see the city transform so much over the past few years in such positive ways. So thank you. Nick, were you trying to say something? I think you're muted. I can see you talking.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Very perceptive. I said I have just a brief 45-minute acceptance speech I wanted to give to the committee. No, certainly very appreciative of this. We were not able to get as much staff here as we wanted on this, but I'll certainly be sharing this with each of them. You know, it's a difficult job. It's been difficult. You know, we're going to hear about some kind of financial headwinds coming on, and certainly not always perfect, but really can never fault the passion and the just desire to deliver for the city, for the staff. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Nick. With that note, we're going to transition over to a conversation about everybody's favorite topic, solid waste. I can't think of anything more exciting to talk about on a Tuesday night. As you all know, composting is being rolled out throughout the city, and we're going to get an update on that program that's coming to a neighborhood near you soon, hopefully, from Nina at the Solid Waste Management. So Nina, thank you so much for spending time with us this evening. We really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Hello. I am trying to share my screen as I introduce myself. So give me 1 second.
Yeah, I just gave you access.
Harder than I thought. Okay, perfect. 1 second. Sorry. Thought I could multitask, but it's a little harder than I thought. So my name is Nina. I am the Waste Diversion and Recycling Manager over in Solid Waste Management. And I am going to show my screen in 1 second and talk about compost. Sorry, the option to share went away. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry.
It is not easy transitioning between Microsoft Teams and Zoom. I'll tell you that.
It is so hard. Okay. Okay. Can you see? Is it still on PowerPoint?
We're seeing like the full PowerPoint window, not necessarily like the presentation window.
Dang.
I was gonna say, if you want to roll the dice, Nina, and see if you can't get it. Otherwise, sometimes I'll just try to minimize that side part as much as possible. I don't know why presentation mode is such a struggle.
Yeah. I don't know. It is really, I got so used to Teams. I used to be a not Teams person, a Zoom person now. Now it's tough. Okay. All right. I'll just minimize the side.
And we're not seeing your screen anymore.
I know. I unshared it. Okay. Here we are. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the compost rollout. So this is the plan that we have in place so far. It has been shared out publicly, so this shouldn't be too new of information if you've poked around on our websites or anything. I will say it's subject to change because as we roll out operationally, educationally, we may need to tweak things here and there. But this is what we have put together so far. So I'll just go into first the order that we have planned for the next few districts, and then kind of where we are now and where we're going. So there we go. All right, so here's the order that we have so far. So you can, there we go. Nope, gonna talk about compost first. So just a quick kind of introduction to compost if you're not familiar with the service. It is essentially organics recycling. So it's a natural biological process that turns organic material like food scraps and yard debris, that's what we collect in our green carts, into this nutrient-rich soil amendment. and that we can put on farms, gardens, etc. It has a lot of climate benefits, pulling that material out of the landfill and into a usable product at the end. Composting is one of the best things that we as residents can do to lower our climate impact. So it's a really great natural process. And then what we do in solid waste is we collect the material at the cart, we send it to a processor to do that actual processing. So it's a pretty cool project, or pretty cool service, cool waste stream. It is a bit sensitive as a waste stream. It does need some hand holding. It's not as automated or as some of our other services. So that's why we take an educational approach to adding this compost service, because it is new for quite a few people. So here's our order again. So we have the city broken up into 9 solid waste collection districts. I'm going to try to refer to them as areas so I don't confuse that with city council districts, because of course they don't line up. So we are doing 1 solid waste collection area per quarter. That's for the starting this current quarter. That's our kind of rollout plan. So we started with collection area 2 up here. And that's one of our smaller districts. We almost ran it as a pilot, so we can kind of see how the process would work, what we need to change and tweak. And then from there, we're currently, as of yesterday, service started for area 4, which is like Montbello, Green Valley Ranch, Gateway area. And then we're moving down to West Denver and Southwest Denver. And you can view this map on our website, just denvergov.org/compost, and then there's a little button for phase compost rollout, so you can search your address. So we have the order set for those first 4, or those next 4 districts, and again 1 per quarter, and then we'll determine the order of 1, 6, 7, and 9 once we get a little bit closer. So how did we determine the order? Prior to volume-based pricing, we operated a subscription-based compost program. So people could opt into the program, pay a fee just for compost service. We had about 30,000 customers sign up for the program, receive service, and they were, across the whole city. Pockets of Denver have significantly higher rates of compost customers than other areas. So we are beginning with the areas with lower numbers of those existing compost customers and therefore lower diversion rates. So on this map, you can kind of see it's a heat map that shows where those pockets are. So the green is actually less compost, so it's a little counterintuitive to the green compost carts. But you can see this area where we are now, and then down here, those are our lowest. Those areas have the lowest number of existing compost customers. It also lines up with the Nest index. So to us, there's a pretty big. We see an equity gap that we can fill by doing the order of the compost rollout in this way. So that's why we're starting with those 4 districts, and then from there, it's going to be determined based on what makes sense operationally for us, because the numbers are about the same in our remaining 5 districts. So where are we now? Solid waste collection area 4, or district 4. So as I mentioned, that's Montbello, Gateway, Green Valley Ranch. So that's the quarter, or the district that we're in this quarter. So residents in that neighborhood got communications at the end of December into early January saying, hey, we're coming to your area. Let us know what size compost cart you want. We'll get it delivered. We delivered the first batch last week, and then residents could start using those carts this week. So starting yesterday. And then we have a second deadline this Friday, the 16th. So any cart selections that we get by Friday, we'll kind of deliver in 1 batch. So that's where we're at right now. I just said all this. We're delivering kitchen pail and a compost how-to guide with the carts. Residents can always request a cart after the initial rollout. They'll just be delivered after we kind of do this big batch. We're just kind of like all hands on deck for cart maintenance team delivering these carts, and then they'll go, any cart or any request we get after that will be put into their normal queue. What we'd love to see happen is like somebody sees their neighbor composting and they didn't think they wanted to do it, but they see how easy it is and they sign up for a cart too. And that's totally fine. We'll welcome those residents in at any time. So this slide, I won't dive into all of these, but just to give an idea of how we're communicating with residents as we're rolling out compost. And when we start a new rollout area, we're sending letters and emails to those residents, letting them know that, you know, how to get involved in the service, how to start it at their house. We are, you know, using our social media, Nextdoor, the Denver Trash and Recycling app, all kinds of fun flyers and all that stuff. We're also tabling and doing presentations at community groups and events wherever we can get in. And we're also contracting with a couple of community-based organizations to help with that outreach, specifically with Spanish language outreach and door-to-door outreach, and it's not on here, but in compost-based education. So that's been really helpful. Another way that we're educating residents, which is really important to us, is that we are auditing every new and existing cart that we drop off or that we have out on the streets. So as I mentioned earlier, compost is a bit sensitive to contamination. Not to get too like waste nerdy, but our recycling centers have a lot of like automation and robots that can help with some of that contamination mitigation. Compost does not have that. And you know, at the end of the day, the final product is this nutrient, you know, it's the soil amendment that we put in our farms and gardens. So if we're sending too much trash to our compost processor, one, that could end up in the final product, so it could end up in our gardens, and that's not good. And two, our loads can get rejected. The processor can say this has too much trash. We have to send this to the landfill, and then that's just, you know, that's a wasteful endeavor. So we are, as we roll out the carts, we're auditing them. We're going around on foot, lifting lids, and that allows us to monitor the compost stream, so see how people are doing with it. And we can provide direct education. So we leave cart tags that will say, you know, we found a plastic bag in your cart. We can't collect it with, you know, with the trash in there. So we'll turn it around so the drivers know not to collect a contaminated cart. And then it provides that direct feedback to residents about what shouldn't be in their cart. And we could also get some like bigger data. So if we know that there's a lot of confusion around plastic bags, just for example, then we can kind of craft our communications around that. So it's really helpful. And yeah, just lets us see how people are doing with the service. So 2 districts down, as I mentioned, we started in area 2. That we did that over the summer. For that area, we gave everybody a cart unless you told us that you didn't want one. So we have a lot of carts on the ground. We saw a pretty big increase in the tonnage that we were collecting from that area, from that compost tonnage. We did see some challenges with communication. That area does have a lot of foot traffic. It's pretty dense in certain areas. So we noticed that there were carts that were being used as trash or that were not being used at all. So we're trying to, you know, work with residents to make sure that they're using the cart correctly, or, you know, we can come take it away if you don't want it, that kind of thing. So we kind of used a different strategy for our next district, for Montbello Gateway Green Valley Ranch. That area has our lowest number of existing compost customers, and we switched to this cart selection program. So we're asking residents to, you know, tell us what size cart you want, and then we'll deliver that. So we have about 1,500 signups so far, including the ones we just did last week. But again, residents can sign up anytime and start their service right away. And then our next steps: ongoing education, auditing, continuing to collect cart selections for District 4, and then just, you know, seeing what we need to, what we may need to tweak or do differently for District 5 as we move along in the rollout. And then last, just going to share some diversion and tonnage numbers. This is kind of a boring looking graph, but just since we started the volume-based pricing program, we have seen an increase in recycling and compost and a decrease in our landfill tonnage and an overall increase in our diversion rate, which is the goal of the program. So we're just happy that, you know, to see people using the programs and the services, and we're excited to keep ticking that number up. And then my contact information is here. I know there was a request to talk about billing. That's kind of, another big topic. So we'd be happy to come back and talk about billing, but in the effort of, I just couldn't cut down all the stuff I want to talk about for compost. So keeping it kind of focused on compost for now, but we're happy to come back another time to talk about billing. Okay, with that, I will stop sharing. I see some
Thank
hands.
you. Thank you so much, Nina. Yeah, Chris Johnson, why don't you take it first?
So thank you for that presentation. Good work, and I think that it's important for our community to engage everyone in composting. My question to you is how involved has DOTI and your office been in researching higher and better use for the compost? And what I have in mind there is what kind of conversations around SAF or sustainable aircraft fuel have you had within the department? There are grants that the FAA is providing to any airport that is willing to work on their feedstock abilities, and I'd like to know if we're thinking along those lines, or is this straight compost and sell it to whoever's processing it? Thank you.
So that's a great question. Yeah, that's a new one for me. I have to be honest, I have not had those conversations. That's a new area of usage for me. So our processor is Waste Management. They're producing the finished compost as their end product. That's our current processor. So not to say that there aren't future uses for that, but their end product is that soil amendment. But that would be a really interesting conversation to have with our friends over in the Climate Action Office at CASR, and with our DEN counterparts as well.
Yeah, I think that if I may, please. I'm sorry to interrupt. I would just say, please talk to your friends at NREL, because they're researching it. They are doing incredible things, and it would be just great if Denver, hometown, city, could take advantage of their research and maybe pilot a program where we actually have direct use of our compost. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Great. Joe? Thanks, Chris.
Nina, thank you for that nice PowerPoint. I do have a few questions, and it revolves around the frustrations of my neighbors and all that. The idea, everybody loves the idea, by the way, and I think it has our total support, and even coming from one of the redder areas on your map. But I guess people are kind of just wondering what the bottlenecks are, and even now, I know when they've gone online to see what it is, they'll say soon. You will find out soon when you're going to get it. Not you're going to get it soon, but the word soon has maybe been overused a little according to them and myself too. So I'm just wondering, kind of, are there bottlenecks that are hard to overcome, or what's going on? And when can I tell the people in the number 7, 8, and 7 and 9 in my area when they might expect that? You mentioned something about every quarter you would bring out another one, but it sounds like that's still uncertain. So is there something I can tell them to encourage them after waiting over a year for something that they really want and are paying for when they're going to get it? So when can you actually figure out some dates on that? So that's all. And I really, really appreciate what you guys are doing, and everybody's in full favor of it. They just want to have a piece of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I understand. I live in one of those areas too. I totally get it. It's a great question. So I can't say exactly when those areas are going to get it. So I don't want to, give a date that isn't a real date. So we can't drop off carts to everyone in the city at one time. We can't service them all at one time. We have to phase it in. So to us, doing it by district, that's the best way for us to ensure service actually gets delivered. So, and like I said, we are concerned about contamination. So it's just such a new service for so many people that we can't go too quick on it. And doing it by district allows us to add, trucks and staff and routes concurrently with the carts. So it's a more efficient way to roll it out for us. And we did start with that one district as kind of that pilot. That took us a little bit longer because we were really trying to figure out how the best way to do that was. And then that allowed us to kind of hone in on this like quarterly system, this like 3 months. So now that we have this like 3 months almost like package to roll out compost in a district, we can do one per quarter. So that takes us to the end of 2025 to get through all the remaining 8, including the one we're currently in. So we have to do it in batches. We have to do it incrementally because we just can't support 150,000 new compost customers at one time. So.
No, well, thank you. It's understood. But I just want to know that anytime you can figure something out and get more trucks or people, again, the frustration level is fairly high. And so I think when they get their compost, they'll be the happiest people on earth. So let's hope we can make that happen as quickly as possible. Or I'll still keep using my phrase, I'll get that to you before I get my compost bin. So that's my new phrase.
Joe, we're very excited. People are fired up about compost and understand kind of the frustration with the rollout. And I think Nina touched on some of the challenges and making sure that as we roll it out, we are doing that adequate communication and adequate education on it. That was something that council really stressed was a critical element of this. But I'll certainly commit to keeping this group updated on the rollout there. But as she said, I think they're cooking with grease now. They've got kind of a better, more efficient system that they've picked up. So moving quickly. Quicker.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question with Julie.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad that you're kind of learning as you go, because I live in that first district and 2, and like my experience, and again, I don't know I'm not well versed in this area. So, I heard about composting at one of these meetings, so I went and ordered when we were still like paying for it. I got a piece of it, but no instructions, so I had no idea what to do. And then that disappeared. And then all of a sudden there are compost bins all over the neighborhood. And they were just lying on the street. No, they weren't moving anywhere. And I never got anything in writing that said how to use it or what to do. So I think I finally got both pieces, the little one and the big one. And then I was composting. I was like all excited and composting. And then the big one was stolen. Like I went and put stuff out on a Saturday morning. I come back and it's gone like later that day. And I then tried to use the online thing, which has been months. So I think in our neighborhood, people have no idea. I don't even know if I was doing it right because we never got any kind of instructions on how to do it. So for those of us that are not really knowledgeable about this, I think maybe when you after you've done all the other neighborhoods, maybe go back to the first ones and do some communication, because I don't see many out any. Again, I live in Clayton neighborhood. I see some, and I don't know why I know the trash bins were getting stolen for a while, but I didn't, because these were like everywhere for a while and then they kind of disappeared. So now I guess they're getting stolen like the trash bins were getting stolen. But I think there are probably other people like me that have no idea, like particularly those of us who have lived there a long time that aren't the newcomers, don't know how this works, and more communication when you're done with the rest would be good.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. And we have some kind of shiny new collateral that goes along with our new compost carts. Some very picture forward guides, and they make it pretty easy to figure out what goes in your cart. But that's a good point, that we can't forget about our existing compost customers and making sure that information gets to you all as well. So.
Well, thanks, Julie. And Nina, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And sorry we were running a little bit late. Just wanted to say thank you again. It's clear that people want more of a good thing in Denver, and they're excited to get their compost soon. So thanks again for giving us an update on the program.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Let me know if you have any further questions.
Great. Thank you again. Moving on to the budget update. As you all know, the budget is a yearly cycle. This year it is much more living and breathing, I think, than recent memory. There's obviously adjustments during the city council process, but Earl is going to join us in a moment here to chat more about some of the recent revisions. As Nick alluded to before, there's been a pretty big reduction in the Denver budget due to the ongoing influx of new residents coming to town, new immigrants coming to town, and the support and care that's gone towards those folks. So Earl, we'd love to get an update from you on kind of where things stand today and your thoughts, and thanks so much for joining us again.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me turn my camera on and I'll share my screen. I put together a little mini presentation to sort of highlight at a very high level overview of sort of where we as a city are right now as a result of this process. And so here, just a second. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, let me put it in share mode. Can you still see my screen?
Looks great.
All right, fantastic. All right, I'm just going to go through provide a high level overview of the changes and really just like a high overview of the situation right now, budgetary wise, as a result of a lot of number of different things, but primarily the migrant crisis and its impact on our budget and city services. And so a lot of these things you may have seen either from other cities across the country and or locally within the city and county of Denver, as well as other municipalities, if there's any real impact there. But in general, the current situation, the mayor has been really working to advocate and has been advocating relentlessly with our congressional delegation and in Washington on numerous trips here for increased federal funding to support this effort, but also now the broader border issue effort that is sort of in play right now in Washington and Congress. And so a number of things related to funding, and work authorization permits or some sort of system related to that, as well as some sort of coordinated entry system amongst the different municipalities to ensure that no one state or city or county or what have you is burdened with an influx of migrant arrivals. And so, with the current state of affairs, with the migrant arrivals being at historic highs, particularly here within the city and county of Denver. You may have seen on CBS and a few other networks that the mayor has been on that per capita, Denver has gotten more migrants than just about any other city in the United States. And so given the current state of what's happening in Washington with the progress of, or the lack of progress on the bipartisan bill that was going to potentially address a lot of these issues, out of an abundance of caution, we're being proactive here at the city to really try to get ahead of this at the earliest point possible. So that way we can evaluate opportunities with different agencies for respective cost savings. And the longer we wait for this, and if we were to hinge our bets on waiting for something to happen in Washington, we'd be by default fighting a losing battle. And that only means further and more harsher reductions down the line. And so being proactive and generally is always going to be the right thing to do. And so, we've seen that through the pandemic, through many different ways. We acted early, obviously, as a result of caution. And there's a lot of things that we didn't know at that point. But and ultimately, federal funding came through in that particular example. But some of the things that you would have more control and more leverage to pull, they only work when you're acting early. And so that's what we're trying to do now. All right. Current cost projections, you may have seen also that the city is currently projecting this effort for 24 to be up to about $180 million, which is a substantial amount of money and is about 10% of the city's general fund budget. So a pretty sizable amount as a result of that. And so a lot of the current surge and the current efforts underway really sort of materialized in a dramatic fashion after the 2024 budget development process. And so, this is why we're working to reevaluate those respective budgets now to ensure funding is available for near-term expenses related to this effort. And so you see, like I said, mentioned earlier, there's other cities around the country that, particularly the two others that have been probably in the news the most in regards to the Chicago and New York and some of the associated efforts there. And when we look at, migrants served since, I'd say probably the week before Christmas was in 2022 was when migrants really started to begin arriving in Denver. And you can see how that's been cascaded over the better part of the last 13 months or so. And so you can see that's been really on a very, very, very high upward trajectory. And so that provides a little bit of context as a result of this situation. All right. Again, like I said, 10% of the city budget, $180 million, which is why we're working to ask early. And then those items really include, migrant intake, shelters, service providers, food, onward transportation, rental assistance, and all of the logistical needs and elements that really a lot of people don't see that it still takes up to provide those services and to really run the logistics of that effort are projected to be included in that 180 million in 2024. And so multiple strategies in the sense of how to deal with the gap while still maintaining a balanced budget, identifying cost savings within agencies, holding non-essential positions vacant, and then deeper reviews of contracts and programs and things that really aren't that are important, but obviously focus on truly what's important as a result of this effort. And so also relying on contingency reserves that we have by charter here at the city. And we've seen with thus far expenses here thus far this year, you see that 10 million from contingency reserves have already been drawn down, along with some additional funds related to the building renovation fund to anticipatedly cover costs through approximately for the first quarter or through the first part of April. So, and then these are just some general questions that likely come up in regards to, especially when something like this happens. 10 to 15% of cuts and reductions, that aligns with the 10% related to the general fund budget of $180 million. And so this ask is really in alignment with that. And we're working to not only here within DOTI, but also other city agencies, but also services that agencies provide to other agencies, determining what if there's any cost savings or any opportunities for deferral of some things as a result. And so public services, I think, given that we're in the midst of determining a lot of this right now, we're going through that process right now to determine what those reductions are and what the impacts on many different levels would be, whether that be impacts to services, whether that be impacts to other elements of the things that we do here within the city. And we're trying to limit the impact as much as possible. And so we want to be sure that we take the time and the proper time to vet a lot of these things through in the most detailed fashion to ensure that we have an accurate capture of what that looks like. Obviously, given the number of migrants that have come to Denver, and when I mentioned earlier that we've received per capita more migrants than any other city in America, that obviously really puts a strain on our city in a way that it maybe doesn't, or at a much limited level in other cities. And so, if you saw that chart where the numbers were going up, we're literally approaching, really capacity with what we're able to provide here in the city. And so, desperate times calls for desperate measures in some degree. So, and then migrant arrival rates, I think that really is out of our hands in a sense, given the state of affairs in Washington and in Texas, and the on-the-ground situation in many of the Central and South American countries. But nonetheless, like I said earlier, the biggest opportunity to address a number of these things, particularly domestically, is federal intervention on many ways. And so, it's difficult to predict, but we're hoping that something more favorable in the sense of fewer migrant arrivals and further federal support, that those things so materialize over the years, so that way we can reduce the impact to other city services and many other things that we're doing as part of this budget exercise. And back to the point of services that are provided by multiple agencies and that coordination process, we're kind of working through again the details of that right now to see what those are and what the impacts are. And some of these things, they are just they're simply process improvements that generate savings with no real impact to services provided. But some things are hard impacts and hard reductions in service and a number of different things. And so making sure, again, we're evaluating those things in due time, and we're going very as detailed as possible to make sure that we have those things captured and outlined. I think beyond that, that's really all I have at this point. Obviously, given that we're, like I mentioned earlier, we are at the beginning, or we're in the midst of this process right now. And so, when the mayor decides ultimately, and Department of Finance and associated staff decide which proposals they are going to be entertaining, many of those will be communicated here in due time, similar to what was communicated late last week publicly around Parks and Recreation and Department of Motor Vehicles reductions. Just 1 second.
Earl, thanks so much for that presentation. I know looks like Christopher Johnson has a question here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, just 1 second. My computer
is kind
of freezing up as I was trying to convert out of screen share mode.
We can't see your face. I think your camera's aimed a little high, but we can hear you just fine, Earl.
Okay. All right. Here.
Yep.
I'll let you.
We can see now.
Perfect.
Just 1 second. Can you hear me now, or can you see me now?
Yeah, you looks great.
Thank you. All right. First question.
So Earl, I thank you for that information. This is a difficult question, and I'm not being antagonistic. I'm truly just asking because inquiring minds want to know how much of the city's budget are we willing to put toward dealing with this crisis? Is there an end? Is there a stop of where the city starts to kind of implode in on itself as we spend more and more money and cut more services? And I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for people who have said, "Oh, you're on the board of that. I want to know this." So help me understand where the line has been drawn.
That's a very good question, and I think that when you look at where we are, or actually where we were, at the beginning of the crisis, and I think in general, a lot of people we're a very generous and welcoming city, right? And a lot of people, I think, earlier in this effort, you think that it's temporary in nature, and there's still quite a bit of unknown. But I think that as the events have unfolded here over the last, I'd say the better part of the second half of last year and into this year, you're starting to see really those the impact of that really affects city services. And it's difficult for me to go and say what that line would be, because ultimately that is determined by the mayor and his senior staff. And so, Nick, do you have any other commentary on that?
No, I truly wish I had the answer, and I think a lot of folks in the city wish we had the answer. I think the Earl touched on it a little bit, and way outside of my wheelhouse. But I think the biggest issue is this has become phrase this correct. I mean, it's a very politically volatile topic right now. And I think this is, again, this is a savvy group, and you guys see, and this is entering into the presidential election. And yeah, that's the challenge. I mean, certainly that stuff's way outside of what I do and kind of what I can control and what we can control. But yeah, I mean, the hope is that it's not, there is changes that improve situations on that. But and I do appreciate seeing the mayor really engage with our senators. I think even today or this week he was out with both Colorado senators and has spent some time in DC really trying to talk about what a challenge this is creating. But yeah, that was a long way saying, gosh, I wish I knew too.
Joe, I know that you've got a follow-up, but I've got a follow-up question. I just want to ask, is there a limit to the mayor's authority to reappropriate the budget for these programs? Thank you.
And Earl, I can take a crack at that if you'd like. But you go first because you actually probably know more.
I think that is there a limit? There's a limit to everything in government, right? To a degree. And what that limit is, I'm not sure at this current moment in us talking about this right now, but that would be that'd be a good question or that'd be a good thing to explore. But nonetheless, Nick, go ahead.
And one thing to remember is, yes, this is we're well into the authority of city council, and so a number of these budget rescissions, budget amendments, they will go through the city council. So it's almost thinking of it almost like a kind of a bizarro or reverse budget process, that we just finished going through earlier or late last year on there. And so that really does kind of, it's not just a unilateral decision. This really engages the legislative branch as well, and all of the kind of public engagement that comes along with that.
Before we go on to Joe Levy for the next question, I just want to call, I see Mercy Canales. I see you have your hand raised from the attendees. Unfortunately, we don't have time for public comment or questions outside of the initial part, but feel welcome to email me, and I'm happy to pass your feedback or questions onto the board or the department. AlanCogill@gmail.com, my first name, last name @gmail.com. I'm happy to pass that on. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to commend for what we're doing. I feel great about our city. And on top of that, I'm really impressed that we're hitting it early. I think that's the right decision to make and not wait around. As seeing in Denver the past 40 years go have our ups and downs, the sooner we act on stuff, the better. But I did have a question, having received my tax bill in the mail today, and I know most of it goes to DPS and the fire department and all that. But is that taken into account that everybody's taxes, I'm sure, have gone up substantially, and there is a general fund in there? Is that kind of planned into how much we have to cut the agencies? Because we all know that the agencies, some of them aren't really at full speed yet, and to cut them back further is going to hurt the city. Again, I don't want to take away from the immigrant population, but how is that going to play into it? That's my question.
Yeah, so when it comes, I'm assuming you're talking property taxes or
yes, property taxes. I'm sorry,
okay,
property taxes.
Yeah, there are and this is detailed in the budget book in the sense of how property taxes revenues are generally spent, but there's quite a bit of sizable dollar amount of that gets directed towards citywide capital projects. And so there may be, given that we're only talking DOTI right here, right? And there are other city departments that also benefit from those respective revenues. In many cases, more than DOTI. And so it's difficult to quantify the exact amount and like what the impacts will be as a result, specifically related to tax revenue. But I think that the city has taken a very much whole of city approach amongst different sources that are, there's a lot of provisions and restrictions on dollars. And so those obviously still apply as a result of this. But nonetheless, that's likely to some degree taken into account, but to the degree I don't know currently at this moment. And then just one additional comment, and this is more for the broader group. In the coming weeks and months, throughout the first quarter, you know, you'll likely be hearing more from the mayor and other city senior staff on further details related to these reductions, not only just related to DOTI, but to other city departments as well. And so stay tuned. I think that there is, you know, potentially an opportunity here for a further discussion once we know more information on how it impacts DOTI and the work that we do here.
And I'd just add, you know, we've gone through this with the budget process, and of course the challenge is that we cannot share information that is not yet public. So this is the exact same process, and certainly have our commitment that the second things are public and able to be discussed publicly, this group will be made aware of that. But really just think of this like the anti-budget process.
One thing I wanted to share, you know, since our charge, you know, based on the statute passed by the voters, is to advise the department on policy and budget. A group of us from the Budget and Policy Committee have started on a draft letter to the department that we'd love to share with you all. We don't have it finalized yet, but we'll be emailing that around to everyone on the advisory board when as soon as this meeting is over, and you all can comment and make suggestions for edits and things like that. We think we've got a good working draft, and we hope to get comments later this week, and then hopefully we'll be able to vote on it electronically, since this is obviously a quick moving target that we're looking at here. We'll want to vote on it certainly before our next meeting, so keep an eye out for an email on that and an ability to vote on advisory letter that we can send to the department with our thoughts as well.
You know, on that very point, Alan, I think the timing of that really, from what I hear, it works out pretty well. You know, when we go to have further conversations with the mayor's office, senior staff, and others in Department of Finance, I think having that letter would be a very important piece of ammunition of sort of support, or either support for as few reductions as possible, or support for making sure the programs and the initiatives that we do here truly are, in many ways, they are essential services, and they're very public facing, and people see these things, and minimizing the impact on that. And so, you know, as long as, you know, with that support, I think that'll really sort of go a long way. So yes, thank you so much for initiating that. Yeah, thank you all. I know it's an interesting process to be working on a few months after we had a budget pass. So appreciate the work that you all are doing to do the best to maintain the critical city services that you all do. Absolutely. Is Director Ford here? Yeah, I didn't see her in the list, but I want to see if she's here. If she's not here, we have time for a question for Julie, I believe. I'm not seeing or hearing her, so Julie, go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment. I really appreciated how the mayor addressed this by saying this is a shared sacrifice, and not, you know, this is a problem that's being caused by the federal government. And the governor, you know, the governor of Texas has made his point. I think is, you know, in terms of, you know, the failed immigration policies of our country, and our, you know, and the federal government being unwilling to act to just let us have work permits, let us give these folks work permits because they want to work. But I really appreciate that he talked about it that way and didn't try and blame people who are, you know, trying to survive on their own right and coming, you know, and coming here because they're running for their lives. So it's a difficult situation. It's there isn't an you know, if there was an easy answer, we wouldn't be in this place. These are, but I just appreciated that. And so, and I think most of the services, there are probably some that aren't really necessary, but I think most of the services the city provides are necessary. And I know personally, you know, it's easy to go, you know, we've been working really hard on guaranteed income. So my first thought is, well, I hope that doesn't get cut, but I think we all have to kind of try and step back and say, okay, we care about, you know, different projects, or we care about different agencies, but looking at, I think it's a tough job to look at the whole city. So but I really appreciate the frame of a shared sacrifice, because budgets are moral documents, and it's easy to be generous when things are good and easy and there aren't stressors. It's harder to do the right thing when it's not busy, when there are more stressors on the budget.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very good point. You know, this, you know, to your point that you made earlier, you know, the budget is a moral document. And, you know, with a large part of what we're dealing with now, these are people's lives, people's livelihoods that are at play. And, you know, when people are trying to escape for a better life, it's, you know, there's a catch-22 with it, right? And being able to effectively message that right and, you know, ideally take the right balance between obviously making sure we're compassionate and we're, you know, we're standing for what America stands for, but also outlining some of the impacts of that as well. So yes.
Lucia, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, one thing I just never seem to hear in this is money from the state. I mean, are we in talks with having the state help Denver out? Because Denver is, it affects the entire state, but Denver is bearing the largest brunt of this. I keep seeing the governor is posting about Colorado pizza and all this kind of nonsense on his X account, and he has never once, as far as I know, mentioned the entire crisis ever once. And I'm just wondering if the city is in talks with the states of getting some emergency funding from the state.
So at various stages throughout this process, to varying degrees, the state has been engaged in the efforts that we have been working through here for the past 13 months. So we've stood up an emergency operations center activation, and there's been discussions with the state regarding that. And so thus far, yes, short answer, yes. But when we look citywide, particularly as a portion of this budget exercise that we're doing now, and obtaining more commitments from the state, whether that be monetary or in-monetary indirect services, I'm not sure what that has looked like and what those conversations have been like with the mayor and or his staff with the governor's office, but I think that that's a very good point. Yes. Nick, do you have anything else on that?
No, sorry, I was trying to make sure that Amy is on her way, and she is. So that was the
Okay, great.
look of concern you saw on my face. But nothing to add to what you said. I think you,
All right,
I think
great,
you
thank
hit
you.
a tough answer.
Mhm.
Great. Well, any other questions for Earl and Nick about the budget? Great. Well, Earl, thank you so much for the update on the ongoing situation regarding the budget for this year. And we appreciate you bringing us up to speed on everything and kind of what's going on with the city on that front. And we'll look forward to working with you all to get that letter over here. Real quick, letter, does it need to be by this Friday, early next week? Okay. What's timing in terms of getting that over to you all that would be appropriate?
I'd say sometime in the next 2 weeks.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That gives us some good idea of when we should focus on getting that to you by. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Great. Real quick, as we're waiting for Executive Director Ford to join us here, I'm sure she's been tied up with something. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city right now. We'd love a quick update. Gary, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot for a policy committee update, or you're welcome to ask a budget question if you have one right now that's lingering.
No, Alan, great minds think alike. I was just raising my hand to offer that quick update. There isn't a tremendous amount of agenda on the policy committee. We are looking at the red light, right turn on red issue. That's an ongoing conversation. We've talked considerably about the Pena Boulevard project, which is another ongoing conversation. And gosh, I don't know, Joe, was there anything else that you can recall that we're discussing in the policy committee, or Jake?
Thanks for putting me on the spot. No, I think, really talk about when can we implement the safety measures, which include the red light and speed control with the stop signs and the right turn on red has been our main thrust. And the lingering thing, as you say, is Pena Boulevard, and kind of like we haven't really seen much progress in the way of that. So we're not sure where it's going. Other than that, I don't think we have anything. No.
And I do just want to say thanks to the policy committee giving us a little bit of space. We've been doing some work on the background and right turn on red, and especially with Amy coming on, wanted just a little bit of a delay, but I think we should be good to go to get you whatever DOTI resource you need at this point. So, but again, thank you guys for your patience.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to add a quick thing about that that Amy just popped on, but there is we are discussing sustainable cement. You know, wondering how far out DOTI contracts for sidewalks. What are you know, technology is still new on this. So are there market-driven solutions that we can use to see if we can get this sustainable cement, maybe letting have like little pilot programs for it for each contractor, you know, and encourage them to try new things, even if it's just 5 or 10 feet of sidewalk for the
Sure.
having sustainable cement. That's one of the other things that the policy committee is talking about.
You're right, Lucia.
Yeah.
And to be, you know, really quick, Jamie wanted me to mention that. So thank you for reminding me. There are some concerns about the carbon footprint of cement, in particularly in line of $100 million a year program and putting down a lot of cement or concrete anyway in the city. So that should be it. And I see we have been joined by the director's office, I believe.
Well, great. Let me Director Ford, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. We know you've got a super busy schedule, so we appreciate you carving out some time to chat with us. In our conversations that we've had, we'd love to, you know, the board hasn't quite, not all the boards got to meet you yet, so we'd love a little more of an introduction on your background and how you kind of got into this role of passion and transportation, and also some of the ideas that you might have for the board. We're kind of in our toddler stage where, you know, we're only 3-4 years old now, but would love your thoughts on how we can best work with you and the department going forward. Thanks for joining us.
That would be great. Let Nick answer the question about sustainable pavement real quick, because I know there's some progress and some thinking that we have a little bit with the program, and then I'd be happy to do that.
Yes, Amy, thank you. And Lucia, now is the time to talk about cement and as it relates to sidewalk on that. So I think we are, you know, right now the focus has been on how we modify the ordinance to really make it implementable on that. But concurrently with that, we've had teams looking at how we're going to deliver this on there. And yeah, if you have any kind of specific information you'd like, you know how to get a hold of me on that. But those are the type of things as we kind of move into the implementation phase of this that I think will be very critical. And our climate office was referenced earlier, and that's a group we've already been in contact with to look at what type of resources are available as we implement this, especially in the areas of sustainability. So yeah, we are open to any and all ideas as we implement this program.
And, you know, let me follow on that. You know, when we sit and talk, and it's really an honor to talk with you. And I've had an opportunity to meet with several of you. I was able to join the advisory board meeting, I think on day 2 of when I started, actually a month ago. And a couple of things as we sit, and I know that you've already had some good discussion and presentations today about where we are in the budget situations and how we're sort of handling different programs, solid waste and others. And, you know, as we sit and we talk about priorities and vision, and Alan, it almost sounded like you said compassionate transportation. And I actually thought that was an interesting comment, if that was unintended, but that's what I heard. And, you know, actually, I think aligns pretty well with how I sit and see transportation and how we drive it with both compassion to how we're sort of meeting the needs of our public and protecting and saving lives and what that means, and compassion for our environment and the impacts that we have on that. And so I'm turning a clever turn of phrase here, but you know, I think it's heartfelt, and it's certainly things that I have certainly worked on in my career, over the years, whether it is in how we leverage, advanced abilities and technologies. I'm sitting here at a conference today here in Denver, and so that's why I'm a little late to coming into this discussion, or how we are looking at sustainability and sort of pulling programs globally across companies, and how we sort of work on our decarbonization path and what that means and what that looks like, to how we sort of move programs that really make a difference in people's lives. And so when I sit and I think about priorities, I joke, when we were talking about the budgeting process, I asked our team and others to think really about creatively about how we look at what we slow and how we frankly stop, and maybe things that we don't start, and how we effectively steward contracts that we have, and how do we pull all those pieces together and shift funds. So you note that I'm on an S theme, and so let me sort of share some of the S's that I think are priorities as we continue to move forward, and frankly how DOTI sort of manages, and that is safety. Safety, safety, safety. And as the mayor has moved forward and set wildly ambitious goals, if you will, and how we bring 1,000 people indoors, and how we start thinking about how we address what is to be a vibrant Denver and such, I think we should equally be thinking the same. And it's a battle and a challenge that we're losing, frankly, right now on our safety side. And how do we think radically and read about what it means to deliver a safe, get them home kind of system and transportation system. So safety is number one. And these maybe aren't in total priority, but safety absolutely is. Safety, sidewalks, streets. And when I say streets, I mean, what do we do with our improvements from a bicycle and pedestrian? And how do we manage and maintain those streets and keep these assets going that we have? Snow. Services, meaning how do we effectively drive the services and the programs that we have, whether it be solid waste or wastewater, but then also even how do we manage, sort of the programs that we don't always think about, the scooter programs and others, so that how do we effectively continue to drive mobility services like our microtransit programs and the expansion of that, for instance, to Sun Valley and others. And then the last one is dollar signs, if you will. And those dollar signs really are revolved around several different things. How we prepare and how we look as an organization and a department as we start thinking about things like upcoming bonds, and how not only are we delivering on the bond programs that we have, of which I know that you guys probably talked about this even. We still have challenges in regards to sort of budget and where we are, and you probably heard about challenges that we've had with West Colfax, and we can talk a little bit about it if we'd like. But so bond, budget cuts, and revenue. And when I say revenue, how do we continue to think and look at address a system and a DOTI that allows us to be able to drive the kind of change that we need to see in our transportation system to really benefit sort of the quality of life for our residents. And underpinning all of that is sustainability. So I want to add the last S. And so going back to your question, Lucia, I feel like, and I've actually just set a meeting here recently to talk about what our sustainability vision is, how we think above in addition to our greening initiatives with landscape and others, but what it also means when we think about carbon reduction. And this is not just about transitioning fleet to electric per se. It's also about how do we think about things like embodied carbon and the materials that we use, and how do we pull in holistically an approach on carbon reduction that sort of informs the entirety of what I'm going to call the process that you have, the life cycle of transportation, from planning to design to how we handle operation or construction and then operations, et cetera. So a lot of things that we could sit and talk about today, but I think that let me just sort of close by talking a little bit about some conversations that I've had with the chairs and with Alan and others as we talk about the Transportation Advisory Board and our relationship with you, and how we continue to engage and how we continue to mature the organization and the relationship that we have, how we collectively work together. And in fact, we have some discussions about that soon, about how we collectively work together in how we arrange and set our agendas, how we sort of actively work with you in regards to where we go in the 2-year charter missions of advisory on budget and advisory within different kinds of programs, and how we set the stage for that, and how you all are following and tracking and engaging with us also on things that are happening through council and otherwise legislative approaches, for instance, that are moving, let's say with council people who have interest in things like micromobility. I'll use that as an example, and such. And so I think there is opportunity for us to continue to collaborate, and also, like I said, mature our engagement in how we all work together, how we set these meetings, and how we sort of move forward in these programs. So I'll just sort of stop it there, but I'd love to sit and chat. And since I'm late, I didn't have the benefit of hearing what you all have chatted about before, but love to just sort of sit and answer any questions and such. And Alan, I see your hands up. So.
Yeah, Director Ford, I'll let Jonathan add his comments here if he'd like to as well, if he's still here. But we had kind of a record amount of public comment tonight about the West Colfax corridor that you alluded to before. So if you're open to giving any comments or thoughts on that, or if there's any compromise solutions to bringing back the landscaping. We saw a lot of business owners, residents, people connected to the schools along that corridor that were found that as a vital part of the project. If you have any thoughts on that, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually did listen in to our public meetings last week. So I was tracking and following and understanding the disappointment on both sides. The disappointment that came from the DOTI team, the DOTI staff, who were working incredibly hard over the last several months, actually, to see if we could reconcile these budget shortfalls and how we could move and deliver what we saw the full project to be. I say that because I think one part to sort of our collaboration and how we continue to work with the community is how we communicate when we're trying to do that. And I think in this process, and I've mentioned this to the team and others, that we shared the outcome of those really intentional and long, hard. I was involved literally the week of asking about additional thoughts and questions about revenue and others and things like that we could maybe pull in to this program. And long and hard and sort of wringing blood from a stone kind of approach to try to figure out where we could go with that. And but what the public unfortunately received was, here we are, this is where we've landed, and we are starting construction here soon. And recognize that there is an entirety of a process that it fell behind sort of all of that and the pacing of that and the engagement. But I think that frankly, we have opportunity as full partners with the community on how we can continue to do better. Honestly, because I know for a lot of community members, it felt dropped out of the sky, and then they're like, and we're moving. And so I'm going to ask and such that our team sort of continue to engage and sort of thinking about how and what we do with that. And it was not, the sad part is that it was such an effort behind the scenes on our team for several months. But sometimes we don't always pull the curtain back on that window, and let people in, and that's complicated. And there are 1,000 reasons why, but I think that we can work on some of that. So let me talk to sort of the forward side of this. We are in the process of continuing to look and evaluate, and with a variety of our different projects through bond programs and others. So we have talked a little bit already about the bond program and sort of how we weave and how we manage the realities of where that budget and the programs are, the kinds of project bids that we get, the inflationary impacts to some of those bids, the original estimating on some of those projects, and how we cohesively manage the entire program. I think that what I'd like to be able to say right now is that I have asked, and we're going to continue to look at some of these projects like West Colfax and others on what opportunities there might be. I mentioned that we were sort of trying to wring blood from a stone a little bit before, but asking for some continued evaluation. So that's where we are. I unfortunately can't say to the public, and therefore, and I'm being really frank there when I say that, but therefore we've solved it. But I want us to continue to explore it. Now, that said, Our contractor is moving and they're moving forward with the program right now. But we have a build, we have some time, we have some work to continue to look at and evaluate. And so there's careful calibrations with how we do all of that. But as we know, West Colfax is not the only program that has this issue. And so that's how we have to try to balance sort of the core of what the program is, safety components otherwise, with how we sort of balance the rest. So I hope that answers the question, Alan, but I'd be happy to chat about if others have thoughts and questions about that.
Thank you. No, that's a great starting point for that conversation. So thanks, and I will allow others to ask any questions or share thoughts that they might have with you as well.
Yeah.
Joe, go ahead.
Joe. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Amy, thank you so much, and that was a very good talk. When you say contractors, I'm just wondering, is that the general contractor who's going to build it, who's instructed by DOTI to go around and tell everybody, hey, your water's going to get shut off on May 25th? Or is that sort of a contract for more community outreach to go to the neighbors?
Oh, excellent question. Actually, it's sort of one and the same, but not exclusive. So yes, our general contractor is the one who's been tasked with obviously the role and responsibility of building and going around and saying, hey, we're shutting down your utilities as we come into your area, et cetera. But part of that group is also a community outreach team who will be doing some of that outreach there, but also it's paired with our community design teams and then our community outreach group as well. And so as we continue to work through this project, both on the construction side, the impact side, but then also how we continue to explore things. And very frankly, it's an opportunity for me to be a little bit new and come in and sort of ask some of those questions and continue to ask those questions. That we will, and I want to make this commitment to come back to the community. So I've received a lot of emails over the last week and a half, and I'm gathering those all up because I want to be able to respond to those folks and let them know sort of where we are and progress and as we move through it. So the short answer is yes to both. Are there questions or thoughts? And I know I'm at the end of your meeting, so you guys might be well done. But I just wanted to, I guess, let me close with saying this, that one, I really appreciate your role and your participation in your work on this advisory board, and especially as we have delicate and challenging issues like what we experienced with West Colfax. Your job is to hear and to understand and to reflect the community issues and concerns, and then be able to engage with us in sort of how we look forward and look to move together. And so, our commitment and how we do that with you is something that I'm really sort of strongly felt about. And I really do look forward to working with you guys as we move forward, and more yet to come, I think. And then we'll catch up with your chairs and others as we continue to sort of, like I said, mature how that relationship goes. Y Francisca, gracias para la traducción, pero puedo hablar un poco en español, pero mi español es muy horrible porque oiré las conjugaciones y muchas palabras, so ayúdame con esto, pero algunas veces puedo hablar en español si quieres. It's nice to see you, by the way.
I'm really curious what the translators did with that.
Francisco, you made me sound brilliant. I know it, so I trust you.
I got to hear that I got to hear for the first time, I got to hear Francisco's English interpretation. So thank you so much. That was fun. Any other questions or thoughts that the board would like to share with Executive Director Ford? No, well, Director Ford, thank you so much for joining us tonight amongst your conference that you're at here in town. So we appreciate your time, and thanks for making some time to join us tonight. And if you get a chance to hear some of the replay from the public comments earlier, I think that'll find your continued interest in learning more from community about what folks are experiencing on the Colfax corridor. So thank you so much again.
I appreciate that. If you don't mind, I'll sit and just sort of continue to listen in as you close out your meeting.
Great. Well, that is pretty much serves. We've gone through the whole agenda right now. It's
So
great.
I closed it out. Understand. Gotcha.
Yeah, you closed it out nicely. Yeah, we
Well,
moved
mic
things
drop
around
and
a little
then-
bit.
Yeah,
That was
no.
great. But we've gone through the whole agenda now. So it's great to see everyone. Again, for DOTI board members, please check your emails in the coming days for some updates on our proposed budget letter to the department that we'll be sending for you all. We'd love to get your comments to add what bullet points that you all find things that are important to be preserved, or things, ideas you have on potential areas where we can reduce the budget or delay or defer programs, as has been mentioned so eloquently by Earl and Director Ford and Nick tonight. We're excited to continue this conversation about the future of Denver and things that we can do to improve people getting around in a compassionate transportation. Was that the term that I used?
That's what I thought I heard you said. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting.
I might have said that. Yeah.
It's great, actually.
Great. Well, thank you all so much again, and we'll give you 3 minutes of your time back. And again, thanks for everyone joining us tonight. Appreciate it.
Great job chairing, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another good meeting. Thank you all.
Thanks,
Yes.
Ellen.
Yeah.